The crown prince Su Qingxi mistakenly thought I was his lifesaver and began openly courting me. I didn't know the truth, and since he was handsome and gentle, it was only natural for my young heart to flutter. But Wan Rongrong, the legitimate daughter of General Wan, clung stubbornly to the crown prince and even petitioned the emperor to grant a marriage decree. After repeated cold rejections and growing despair, she faked her death by setting a fire and left behind a blood-written letter. In that letter, she revealed that she was actually the real lifesaver of Su Qingxi. When Su Qingxi learned the truth, he went mad. In a rage, he cut the child from my womb and carried my severed head to Wan Rongrong. In the end, they fell into a twisted, painful love, reconciling after breaking apart, while I was left with no remains, transformed into a vengeful ghost. As I struggled in agony, a Buddha's voice said, "Someone in the mortal world is willing to sacrifice their life to save you. Since that is so, you may return." And so I was reborn. When news of the crown princess's self-immolation arrived, Su Qingxi was having dinner with me. I was 3 months pregnant and suffering constant morning sickness, my body noticeably thinner. He was deeply worried and made sure to coax me to eat every meal. Though I had little appetite, having him by my side helped me swallow a bit now and then. Just as he was gently feeding me some millet porridge, a crying maid burst through the door. She knelt down with a loud thud and pleaded, "Your Highness, please go see the crown princess. She's dying." Su Qingxi's hand froze for a moment, but he said impatiently, "Get lost. If she wants to die, let her." I furrowed my brows, feeling uneasy. At that moment, loud commotion came from outside, flooding at Chaoyang Hall. The crown princess might still be inside. Su Qingxi jumped up abruptly, spilling the hot porridge all over me. Without looking back, he rushed out. Though my heart ached, I knew the situation was serious. The maid who brought the news laughed freely and taunted me. "You fake, your death is near." I frowned, confused by her meaning, and ordered someone to drag her away. Watching the thick smoke billow outside like a wave, I felt a deep unease in my heart. After learning of the crown princess's death, I couldn't sleep all night. Though we never got along, I still felt sorrow over her desperate actions. Su Qingxi looked mad, clutching a charred corpse tightly, sitting in silence all night. My heart broke, so I quietly tried to comfort him. "She's gone. Your Highness, you still need to take care of yourself and let the crown princess rest in peace." He seemed not to hear me and after a long moment coldly spat, "Get lost." Then the crown princess's personal maid, Xiao Tao, shouted at me angrily, "You get lost. Your missus ended up like this because of you." I narrowed my eyes. She spoke as if I had set the fire myself. Suddenly, Xiao Tao burst into tears and pulled out a blood-written letter, handing it to Su Qingxi. "Your Highness, it was my lady who went through so much to save you back then." Hearing this, the kneeling Su Qingxi trembled all over. He shakily took the blood letter, tears flowing uncontrollably. The letter detailed every scene and detail of the rescue years ago and hinted at my malicious deceit. Under my baffled gaze, he stood and drew his sword, pointing it at me. "Yun Suoan, you vile woman. You've been lying to me all these years." He coughed up blood, eyes bloodshot and full of rage. "How could I have been fooled by someone like you and hurt her so deeply?" I hurried to explain, but I didn't know anything about it. "You never mentioned it to me." Su Qingxi wouldn't listen. He was convinced I was scheming. He cut the child from my womb with his own hands, watching coldly as I died in agony. "You don't deserve to bear my child. Go and make amends to Rongrong." Watching my belly burst open with a huge wound and the unborn baby beside me, I trembled with pain, tears of blood streaming down my face. But what was I supposed to apologize for? It was Su Qingxi who had mistaken me, and Wan Rongrong who had twisted the truth. They acted out a tortured love, but at the cost of my life. How hateful and how tragic. Su Qingxi's hatred for me was absolute. Even after my death, it wasn't enough. He used dark magic to trap my soul. While I burned in the fires of hell, barely clinging to life, the two of them were still wrapped in each other's arms. That's when I realized Wan Rongrong had faked her death and fled to Gusu. She ran, he chased, and for 3 years they lived together with their child. Endless resentment spread through me, almost turning me into a vengeful ghost. Should I kill them? Then so be it, as you wish. Suddenly, a clear chime of bells and drums rang out, accompanied by the sound of a wooden fish percussion. Someone in the mortal world is willing to sacrifice their life for you. Go back. I regained some clarity, confused. Go back. Sacrifice their life for me? The vision before me blurred. A man in dark robes knelt on a meditation cushion, bowing sincerely. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't see his face clearly. My consciousness faded, and I fell into a deep sleep. When I opened my eyes, Xiao Lu was crying with joy beside me. Miss, you're finally awake. Looking at her innocent face, I was stunned. Shortly after I married into the Eastern Palace, the crown princess had found some excuse to sell her off. Seeing this soft, silly little girl now made my eyes wet. Xiao Lu, what year is it now? She looked at me worriedly. It's the 30th year of Qing'an. Please don't scare me, Mississippi. My gaze shifted slightly. The 30th year of Qing'an was the year I was about to marry Su Qingxi as a secondary consort. By then, Wan Rongrong had already become crown princess and was making life difficult for me, who was still unmarried. This time, I had fallen into the water and lost consciousness, all thanks to her. But in this life, I haven't married into the Eastern Palace yet. Everything can still change. Tears and laughter mixed as I vowed this time they would pay back every debt in blood. After regaining some strength, I got up to find my parents. No matter what, I absolutely refused to marry Su Qingxi again. Even if it meant taking revenge on them, I wouldn't sacrifice the rest of my life. But when I knelt in the main hall, my father was furious. You agreed to this marriage in the first place, and the crown prince dotes on you. What's with this tantrum? My mother, though feeling sorry for me, stayed silent. I dared not mention my rebirth, so I bowed my head and cried as I kowtowed. Father, mother, please, your daughter can't marry him again. I hate him. I despise him. Can you please have some pity on me one more time? My forehead bled from banging it on the floor, yet I stubbornly looked up at them. In the hall, my second brother, Ji Yanli, quietly watched me with an unreadable expression. Just as we reached a deadlock, he suddenly moved. He stood, walked over to me, and knelt down smoothly. Younger sister has never been unreasonable. Father, mother, please just go along with her this once. I was a little stunned. His eyes were calm, like still water. Ji Yanli was my father's adopted son, supposedly entrusted by an old friend, temporarily living at the Yun family estate. Usually, he was aloof and avoided socializing, so I often forgot I even had a second brother. But even someone so detached and calm was now stepping in to intervene. As I pondered this, my father sighed heavily. Originally, Su Sui and the crown prince were well matched. After marriage, he could have helped you all. Before Ji Yanli could respond, my father waved his hand. Enough, enough. If you refuse, then refuse. But if there's any more foolishness about marriage, I won't let it slide next time. My mother stepped forward to help me up, her eyes full of concern. Look at all this blood on your head. Why do you have to be so hard on yourself, silly girl? I smiled foolishly with joy and snuggled up to her for comfort. Just as I was about to thank my brother properly, he quietly slipped away. I blinked. What a strange personality he had. The news of the Yun family canceling the engagement shook the entire Qing'an. This royal marriage was supposed to be unchangeable, but Yun Yushir had merit in serving the emperor and had knelt in the main hall for a whole day. The emperor, remembering the 2 generations of loyal officials, waved his hand and cancelled the marriage. The crown prince Su Qingxi imitated this by kneeling for a whole month, but failed to change the emperor's mind. He grew desperate and, ignoring protocol, barged straight into my courtyard. Sui, what's wrong with you? After your falling into the water, I already had Wan Rongrong placed under house arrest. I waved my hand, and the guards I had prepared swarmed in. He was restrained and looked at me unwillingly. We've been through so much together. Don't make trouble. I leaned lazily on the lounge chair, amused by his words. I've actually been meaning to ask you, why do you love me? He answered without hesitation, because you're kind, smart, and brave. But we weren't that close before. How do you know all that? He smiled mysteriously. I just know. I rolled my eyes.
See?
He insists on putting that meaningless favor on me. Whenever I try to ask him seriously, he always brushes it off or teases me. Anyway, we're destined. I'm really grateful fate let me meet you. I thought it was some vague youthful encounter that moved his heart, so I didn't press further. Now, it seems all these misunderstandings were just his one-sided assumptions, wild guesses. But how innocent am I? Because of his mistake, I gave up my life. Thinking about this, my resentment swelled, and the pain was unbearable. One of them is blind, the other mute, so I let them have their way. This time, I plan to keep this secret to the end and enjoy watching their tangled love and hate. With that thought, I put on a pitiful expression. This daughter really has no choice. The crown princess doesn't want me to marry your highness. She threatened me, saying she'd leave me with no place to be buried. I'm so scared. Wah wah. Under his furious look, I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my cheeks. Although I can't be with your highness in this life, I hope in the next. Su Qingxi softened completely and swore. Don't worry. I'll never let her so much as touch a hair on your head. I'll take care of it. When the time comes, I'll welcome you back in grand style. After comforting me a few more times, he stormed off angrily. I watched his retreating figure, a faint smile appearing on my lips. This was going to be quite a show. I turned around with a grin but unexpectedly saw Ji Yanli. He stood quietly, studying me. I nervously was about to greet him when he spoke first. Father asked me to train you in martial arts to build up your strength. Tomorrow I'll take you through some basics. Remember to get up early. Then he strode away. I stuck out my tongue, wondering how much he just overheard. I worried a bit that he might think I was just toying with the crown prince. Sighing, I looked after him and suddenly felt an odd sense of familiarity. So strange. Where had I seen him before? I knew father must have been afraid I'd get bullied again, so he had my brother train me. I was touched and took it seriously. But honestly, I wasn't cut out for this. As Qing'an's most famous talented young lady, I was skilled in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. But when it came to martial arts training, aside from having a steady horse stance, I was clueless. When defending, Ji Yanli tested me with a light attack, and I ducked low to dodge. When attacking, I couldn't reach him with my kicks, and ended up doing a full split. My usually quiet brother was silent for a moment, then gave me a thumbs up for my flexibility. Of course, my dance skills were renowned throughout the land. But before long, I was exhausted and frustrated. Second brother, I'm tired. Ji Yanli noticed my sweat-soaked temples and handed me a handkerchief. Wipe your sweat. That's enough practice for today. Let's go eat. I took it naturally and smiled sweetly at him. Thanks, second brother. I'm hungry too. At the dining table, everyone stared in disbelief as I helped myself to a third bowl of rice. My fourth sister, Yun Heshin, said bluntly. Third sister, you're eating like a pig today. I almost choked with anger and pointed at her, unable to speak. Beside me, Ji Yanli helped smooth things over and explained. Your third sister has been tired all morning. Practicing martial arts takes a lot of energy. I grabbed a piece of fish and nodded deeply. My mother, full of concern, said, then eat more. If you want anything, tell the cook to serve you another portion. Just as I happily ate my meal, an unexpected guest arrived. Master, the crown prince is waiting in the outer hall. My father was surprised but still instructed the servant carefully. All right, go serve him some tea first. I'll be there soon. Hearing that name, the food in my hand suddenly lost its appeal. My mother anxiously asked, "Wasn't it already made clear? Why is he here?" My fourth sister, Yunheshin, cut in. "It's obvious he's here for third sister. The crown prince likes third sister so much, there's no way he'll give up." My eldest brother Yun Nanfing's face darkened as he scolded, "Don't say that again, or we'll cause gossip. Third sister, don't worry. Father and I will handle this." So the two of them hurried away. I lost my appetite and got up from the table. Those two from the Eastern Palace were really ruining my mood. But I couldn't just ignore it now, which was very frustrating. In the past few days, I had been staying at home, shutting the door to visitors, playing the guqin, and spending time with family. When I died in my previous life, I was only in my early 20s, in the prime of my youth. Would they have been heartbroken when they found out I died, without a whole body? Unfortunately, I died so unfairly, without even leaving a single word behind. Thinking of this, tears welled up in my eyes. Ji Yanli glanced at me quietly while practicing his horse stance and wiping my tears, twitching his mouth. But he still bent down to look at me and asked, "Are you feeling unwell today?" "It's only been the time of half a cup of tea." I honestly looked up at him and said, "My heart hurts a little." He smiled helplessly, thinking I was making excuses to slack off. I said seriously, "I really feel bad because I love all of you so much." Ji Yanli's movement froze, clearly a little uncomfortable. But when his eyes met mine, so clear and sincere, his restless thoughts calmed. He smiled warmly and stroked my head. "Our whole family loves Sui Sui very much." My eyes lit up, and I was overjoyed. "Then, second brother, take me to eat roast goose at Tianxiangzhai." The roast goose was delicious, and second brother was very generous. We also went to the Suzhou boat district together. The singing girls there were very pretty. But on the way back to the mansion, I encountered someone unpleasant. Coincidentally, Wan Rongrong appeared with a young maid, walking straight toward me. I planned to pretend not to see her and pass by, but she stopped me abruptly. She looked much more haggard now, with dark circles under her eyes. Seeing me still radiant as ever, a flash of hatred gleamed in her eyes. "Bitch, you interfered in someone else's love. You won't die a good death." I didn't react much. I was used to it. She cursed me like this in the previous life too, even tearing my clothes in public like a shrew. Su Qingxi didn't bother with her, and always told me, "Don't pay attention to that lunatic. She's not right in the head." No wonder we looked down on her. Wan Rongrong was truly a bitter person. She wouldn't say anything but would always hold grudges. I was too lazy to bother with her now and tugged at Ji Yanli beside me. "Second brother, let's go." "I don't know her." But he gently held my hand, his face serious. Just as he was about to speak, the crown prince smelled trouble and rushed over. Su Qingxi, as usual, didn't hesitate and immediately scolded Wan Rongrong. "What are you doing here? I knew you came to cause trouble for Sui Sui." I lowered my head, stifling a laugh. Here we go again, the brainless abusive wife drama. But this time I was watching happily, stepping back and carefully not getting involved. Ji Yanli was very considerate. He handed me a bag of melon seeds. Wan Rongrong in front of us was red-eyed and tearful, saying mournfully, "You always wrongly accuse me just because you love Yin Sui Wan. You never listen to me." Su Qingxi said righteously, "How many times have you harmed Sui Sui yourself, yet you want others to believe you? What right do you have to bully Sui Sui? What did she ever do to you?" "That's because I... She bit her lip, very conflicted. "Oh, so now they're trying to clear up the truth?" I was a little disappointed, but in the end, I underestimated Wan Rongrong's stubborn bitterness. She stammered for a long time and said nothing. Su Qingxi was already impatient. "You're a malicious woman jealous of my relationship with Sui Sui. Give it up. I will never love you in this life." I almost burst out laughing. They really were a perfect match. One doesn't listen, the other doesn't speak, playing up their understanding. By the time I'd spat out my 500th melon seed shell, I was bored. Too cliché, not even as good as the scripts in the capital. Taking advantage of their fierce quarrel not noticing me, I quietly pulled Ji Yanli and ran away. When we got to the Wanchan alley, I laughed until my stomach hurt. Second brother, what did you think of that little show just now? But Ji Yanli didn't laugh at all. He quietly stared at me. I stopped laughing, feeling a bit uneasy. Would he think I was secretly scheming and cruel? Just as I was feeling uncomfortable, his hand gently rose, as if to touch my cheek, then withdrew. He leaned down seriously and looked at me. Sway Sway, is there something troubling you? I was stunned for a moment. Then he continued, you clearly don't love the crown prince anymore, yet you pretend to please him. I can see everything you do is to make those two hate each other. But why? I asked him in a trembling voice. You think I'm despicable too, don't you? Recalling everything from my past life, I couldn't help but cry out loud. I want them all to die. For that, I can do many shameful things. You have no idea. At this moment, Ji Yanli couldn't help himself anymore. He pressed me against the wall, gently wiping my tears with his fingertip. He smelled of pleasant sandalwood, and I could even feel his breath. Sway Sway, you have to cherish yourself. There will always be people in this world who treasure you like a jewel. My tears blurred my vision as I faintly saw the intense love in his eyes threatening to overflow. He gently rested his head on my shoulder and said, if you have a burden, I can help you kill them. I was stunned and felt a vague unease. Second brother. He chuckled softly, looking at me solemnly and promised, Sway Sway, I can help you kill them. That scene in Wanchan Alley left me feeling both frightened and uneasy. It had been a long time since Ji Yanli and I last met. Honestly, I was quite shocked. My second brother was always calm and reserved, never one to lose his temper. He always seemed indifferent, as if nothing in the world was worth his concern. Yet, just from a few words of mine, he was willing to help me commit regicide. To him, the crown prince was his lord. He always upheld hierarchy and loyalty. For him to speak such treasonous words was unthinkable. Another reason I dared not see him was because that day we were so close, and his tone was so gentle, it gave me a strange feeling as if he was speaking sweet nothings to me. It was a bit embarrassing. I was afraid that if I met him, I would seem awkward. Ji Yanli seemed to sense my subtle distance as well. But he still acted as casually as ever, as if that day had been nothing but a dream. In early March, just at the beginning of spring, the Empress Dowager decided to hold a spring-seeking banquet at the South Pavilion. All the noble ladies and young masters in the capital received invitations and eagerly prepared for it. Though it was called a spring-seeking banquet, it was essentially a matchmaking event hosted by the Empress Dowager for the younger generation. My mother specially invited embroiderers from Minghua Pavilion to make dresses for me and my fourth sister. She especially tapped my head and reminded me, since you've broken off the engagement with the Eastern Palace, many noble wives have sent messages secretly asking about you. You're at the right age for marriage now. See if there is someone from a good family that you like. I lazily lay on the soft couch, reading a storybook, and said, Oh, daughter has no thoughts about marriage yet. My mother crossed her arms and nagged me, threatening to personally help me choose. However, on the day of the banquet, my fourth sister suddenly fell ill, so my mother had to give up. So I went alone by carriage. My reputation in the capital was always quite good, and my temperament gentle, without sharp edges. So as soon as I stepped off the carriage, several noble young ladies surrounded me to greet me. Suishi, your new skirt is so beautiful. Suishi, you haven't been out for a while. We haven't seen you in ages. I smiled and nodded, chatting warmly with them. Not far away, Wan Rongrong sat alone, looking lonely. She used to have many close friends, but since she focused all her attention on the crown prince, she stopped attending gatherings. Occasionally, she would sulk at her friends because of the crown prince's neglect. Over time, the general's legitimate daughter faded out of the noble social circle. Now, sitting there all alone, watching me surrounded by everyone, she couldn't help but regret it. I pretended not to notice her resentful gaze and politely gave her a nod in greeting. After that, I joined the group playing guessing games and composing poetry. It was quite pleasant. Several young masters at the feast kept glancing at me deliberately or unintentionally. Not to mention the crown prince Su Qingxi beside Wan Rongrong, whose gaze was fiery and smile endless. Even the Empress Dowager squinted her eyes in approval and gifted me many jewels and trinkets. The crown princess opposite grew increasingly furious. She bit down hard on a piece of fish broth, only to suddenly vomit it out. Everyone's eyes swept in that direction, and even the Empress Dowager was displeased. Seeing Wan Rongrong's pale face, she sent the imperial physician to check on her. To everyone's surprise, it was discovered the crown princess was already 2 months pregnant. The Empress Dowager was overjoyed and ordered attendants to take good care of her. Even Crown Prince Su Qingxi was momentarily stunned, looking at her with complicated feelings. Everyone stood and congratulated them warmly. I kept smiling, but silently clenched my skirt's hem. My child had died so innocently back then. You all won't be allowed to bear heirs. Although I felt disgusted, I still resorted to my old tactics, continuing to work through the crown prince's side. I only needed to glance at him, and Su Qingxi would become flustered. Since he hadn't gotten me yet, naturally, he was extremely anxious. Later, when the young masters and ladies went out for spring outings in groups, I deliberately slipped away from everyone toward a small path. As expected, the crown prince quickly followed. In front of a banyan tree, he reached out and grabbed my hand but was forcefully shaken off by me. I squeezed out a few tears and turned my back on him. Your Highness, you and Sister One are now so deeply in love. Surely you've long forgotten this servant girl. Forget it, forget it. Let's just treat our past as a dream, and now that the dream's over, let's part ways. Su Qingxi panicked. Suishi, my heart for you is as clear as the sun and moon. I swear I never loved that crazy woman. But Sister One is carrying your child. He looked embarrassed and awkward. We were arguing at that time, and then I suddenly felt dizzy. And then you two rolled into bed. No, no, no. I was just humiliating her. I have no feelings for her at all. I cried pitifully, but rolled my eyes inside. Who humiliates others in bed? I thought both of them were a little crazy. If I stayed too long, I'd probably go mad too. So I hastily cried a little and ended the conversation. The point of this talk was to make him feel guilty about me so he would take out his anger on Wan Rongrong. I definitely didn't want her to have a peaceful pregnancy. After sending the crown prince away, the air seemed fresher. Willows drooped golden threads, peaches bloomed rosy clouds, idle flowers greeted spring lightly, and water splashed on lotus leaves. Walking to the waterside pavilion, I happened to see a couple chatting leisurely. I wanted to quietly avoid disturbing their moment. At that moment, a familiar voice sounded, and I suddenly couldn't move. I hid behind a big maple tree and perked up my ears. No way. Is my second brother's spring finally coming? His usual silent, cold temperament so rare. Amid the shock, I felt a hint of sadness. Maybe because his solemn promise that day in Wanchan Alley had stirred in me a possessive thought. Such a good second brother, and yet he would belong to someone else. As I was daydreaming, Jianli turned and walked away. The girl looked disappointed, quietly stamping her foot but helpless. Curious, I watched as he headed straight toward me, startling me thoroughly. I tried to curl up small, closed my eyes, and silently prayed. Please, don't let me get caught eavesdropping. But no matter what I thought, Jianli stopped right in front of me and calmly said, "There's a snake at your feet." My face turned pale. Damn it, he was playing a deadly trick. Although I suspected he might be tricking me, I still jumped up. He smiled softly, and with one hand lifted me up, gently patting my head. Don't squat in the bushes so much in the future. There are too many insects and snakes. I was fuming, of course, he was tricking me. Second brother looks so honest, but he's actually very scheming. He laughed without caring. There are many things about me you don't know. Suddenly, the atmosphere turned silent. We both unconsciously thought of something. In the end, we said nothing and quietly walked out of the peach grove. When we returned to the spring terrace, everyone had already communicated their intentions with their chosen partners, satisfied and content. Meng Yan, the youngest daughter of Minister Meng, teased me. Did you fancy your second brother? Well, since he's not related, I guess it's not impossible. She spoke loudly, and even Ji Yanli glanced over here. My face immediately flushed red. I pinched her arm. You've read too many romance stories. Stop talking nonsense. Damn it, don't mess with my mind. I really didn't think that way. Now I was inexplicably shy. Anyway, when I returned to the Yun residence, my mother hurriedly came up to ask if I had found a suitor. A strange blush rose on my face as I waved my hands and quickly ran back to my room. The Empress was born into a military family and loved organizing competitions like polo matches. This year she was especially eager and started preparing 2 months early. I'm not good at horseback riding or archery and originally planned to decline. But the Empress even sent me a special invitation, which made me a bit anxious. I sat by the pool, frowning in worry. In my previous life, the Empress had always made things difficult for me because of Wan Rongrong, often summoning me to the palace to reprimand me. The Empress and Wan Rongrong were both fierce daughters of military families, very alike in temperament and circumstance. She hadn't enjoyed the Emperor's favor for years and hated me, this seemingly delicate fox spirit. She was convinced I schemed behind the scenes to drive a wedge between the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. I didn't know what trick she was planning to humiliate me with this polo match. July's scorching sun was unbearable. I was dizzy from the heat on horseback. Ji Yanli stood behind me, gently supporting me and teaching me some basic horse riding skills. Second brother, I want to be on your team. He smiled. I naturally have no problem with that, but I don't know how they'll arrange the teams. True, I said listlessly. When the teams were announced, I wasn't grouped with my second brother or anyone I knew well. Whether intentionally or not by the Empress, I was assigned to a team with some infamous playboys from the capital. I was the only woman on the team. Utterly ridiculous. I gritted my teeth and silently prayed for the match to end quickly. Just as I was about to catch a polo ball from a teammate, someone behind me suddenly intercepted it with great force. The ball flew straight into the woods behind us. One of the playboys on my team shouted loudly, "Miss Yun, hurry and get it back. We're about to lose." So I had no choice but to ride quickly toward the woods. Though I chased with all my might, the ball flew out of bounds and landed among the trees. I sighed in disappointment, dismounted, and picked it up. At that moment, Master Xiao from my team followed me, calling out repeatedly, "Miss Yun, where are you?" I eyed the tall bushes nearby nervously and stayed silent. I quietly hid to one side, hoping to slip past him and return. But he quickly found me, creeping forward with a lecherous grin. "People say Miss Yun is the capital's top talent. Now I see your beauty is unmatched here too." I was disgusted and quietly pulled the hairpin from my bun. "You'd better calm down. The Yun family is not someone you can afford to offend." He laughed loudly, tilting his head with malice. "After all, I'm the nephew of the current Empress. What if I say you're deliberately trying to seduce someone? Whether people believe it or not, your reputation will be completely ruined. You'd better come with me." So the Empress had set a trap for me here. Luckily I'd been practicing some basic skills with Ji Yanli recently. This big man couldn't catch me for a while. Just when I was about to retreat with some hope, Master Xiao suddenly laughed. "You fell into the trap. The stakes today aren't with me. Ruining your chastity isn't enough. Someone wants your life." Surrounded by flashing blades, I looked back. Dozens of black-clad imperial guards calmly approached. When I was cornered at the cliff's edge, I realized today was probably my end. Hot sweat dripped down my face into my eyes, stinging painfully. I was truly unwilling. After all the twists and turns, this was the outcome. But at least this life I had some use, and I got to know my gentle second brother. Ji Yanli. I slowly whispered his name, feeling a strong reluctance. A strange softness bloomed in my heart, startling me. The lurking guards moved suddenly, and one threw a knife at me with lightning speed. I was like a lamb to the slaughter, weakly watching the deadly intent close in. But then, A familiar figure blocked the knife. Ji Yanli's hand tightly grabbed the throwing knife, blood flowing profusely. His body wavered slightly, his expression suddenly strained. I whispered softly, "Second brother?" My second brother was excellent with his fists and feet, but had never drawn a blade before. Though I didn't know why, the situation was dire and I feared he might get hurt. "Second brother, don't worry about me. Go find help, find the real mastermind, and avenge me." All the black-clad guards surged forward, coordinated and cold. Ji Yanli suddenly smiled and slowly turned to look at me. "Suesi, don't be afraid. You won't be hurt." Finally, I saw him draw his sword. The sword wind swept around, majestic and domineering. But it wasn't just a sword. He seemed to have drawn a flying dragon, alive and swirling in his palm, flawless in every move. They fought fiercely, sword energy sharp, neither willing to yield. Watching his slender figure in the dark, narrow-sleeved python robe, I suddenly cried, then smiled. "So it was you all along." I could tell those black-clad guards were highly skilled, but in the end, they lay slaughtered all over the ground. Ji Yanli leaned on his sword and suddenly, without warning, collapsed. I was terrified and let him rest against me. "Second brother, are you all right?" He gently shook his head, hesitated for a moment, then finally said, "I'm fine. I just faint at the sight of blood." As if noticing my questioning gaze, he struggled to explain. "My birth mother was an assassin. She had been secretly living in my father's mansion for 10 years. I was already 8 years old when she finally found the opportunity to kill my father. I was the first to discover his body. Seeing all that blood, I was terrified. My mother stood beside him holding a bloodied sword and told me to follow her. I fainted, and since then, I can't bear the sight of blood." My throat tightened, and I felt a bit uneasy. "But you still said you wanted to help me kill the crown prince." His eyes reflected my silhouette. "But for you, I'm willing to draw my sword. I've liked you for a long time, Sui Sui." I finally smiled and pressed close to his ear, which easily flushed red whenever excited. "I kind of guessed it. I'm very happy. Because not only are you my ideal person, you're also the benefactor I've been searching for." His gaze grew slightly puzzled. I stood up, patted my aching legs, and helped him to his feet. "I'll tell you more slowly later. After all, we have plenty of time." I mounted a swift horse nearby and reached out my hand to him. "Come quickly. My revenge is about to end in a grand spectacle." After Ji Yanli and I returned, the Empress and Crown Princess instantly looked evasive and frightened. I couldn't be bothered with them and reported the matter directly to His Majesty the next day. At first, the Empress remained calm and defiant, stubbornly claiming it was her negligence that let the villains in. She thought that with no proof, I couldn't do anything to her. But she seemed to greatly overestimate Wan Rongrong's intelligence. The foolish Crown Princess's people were all Wan General's personal guards and assassins. Wan Rongrong thought she could strike with a sure shot and thus didn't bother to hide the killers' identities. As a result, the marks of Wan General's guards were found on many of the corpses. The Emperor, already wary of Wan General's influence, flew into a rage. The Empress was confined for 3 months, and the Phoenix Seal was temporarily handed to noble consort He. The Crown Princess's conduct was disgraceful. Considering her pregnancy, she was demoted to concubine status. Wan General quietly recruited more black-clad guards and was sent to the northwest to serve as a 7th-rank marshal riding marquis. Amid the wailing and lamentations, I remained expressionless. There was still one last unresolved matter in my heart. Once I settle these scores, I will live my life properly. I knocked on the East Palace door. The Crown Prince looked at me with delight. "Sui Sui, why are you here? Are you well?" I smiled pleasantly. "I came to see the Crown Princess." Suddenly realizing something was off, I lightly covered my mouth. "Ah no, to see concubine Wan." Su Qingxi looked a little surprised, but still led me inside. "Why do you want to see that venomous woman? She's not in a good state of mind and might hurt you." I smiled without replying. "She couldn't take it?" "Wait, I still have a big scene to make later. Turning left and right, I arrived at a remote little courtyard. Weeds had overgrown everywhere, and the house was dilapidated. Pushing open the old gate, the dusty smell hit me, making me frown. Inside, it was dim and damp, with faint signs of rats scurrying around. Su Qingxi was ruthless indeed. Wan Rongrong was still pregnant. I looked at the woman huddled in the corner, disheveled and wild-haired, and slowly stepped forward. I spoke in a voice only the two of us could hear. I'm about to become crown princess soon. Are you happy? She glared at me fiercely, but surprisingly held back. I kept provoking her. His Highness promised me he'd let me raise your child. Don't worry, sister. Suddenly, she flew into a rage, knocking me to the ground and choking me fiercely. You bitch, go die. The crown prince at the door saw this and quickly rushed over to pull her off, slapping Wan Rongrong. She fell to the ground, bleeding, clutching her belly, crying in pain. Your Highness, how can you treat me like this? I saved your life. Su Qingxi was baffled. What nonsense are you spouting? After all these years, she finally couldn't hold it in. In Qingyang City back then, when you got separated from the Empress, I gave you a bag of silver. You even said you would marry me. Was that all just a joke? I slowly closed my eyes. She finally spoke the truth. It was a trivial matter. If only she had spoken out then, everyone could have parted peacefully. But she worried the crown prince wouldn't believe her. Worried he had already forgotten that kindness and would dislike her even more for loving me. She believed I wouldn't admit it and would cheat her out of her favor. So she blamed heaven and earth every day, hating and bullying me in secret, burying the truth deep in her heart. When she finally lost to me, she faked her death and revealed this, hoping to leave a lasting impression on the crown prince. That blood letter contained not only the truth, but many baseless slanders against me. In a rage, Su Qingxi tortured me to death. But what did I do wrong? Because of Su Qingxi's blindness and Wan Rongrong's concealment, my body was never found. I became a vengeful ghost, wandering the world, unable to reincarnate. Tears slowly flowed down my cheeks as I mourned my own injustice. Su Qingxi fell into a rare silence after hearing the story. His trembling hand pointed at Wan Rongrong. You lied to me. My savior is nothing like a shrew like you. She wore pearl silk dresses, with a lively and lovely green jade hairpin on her head. He muttered repeatedly, as if speaking to someone unseen. Suddenly, he grabbed me wildly. Sway, sway, say something. It was clearly you who saved the troubled me, right? She's just slandering you because she's unwilling to accept it. I sneered at him. Not me. I don't have a habit of saving fools. Su Qingxi was just as much a bastard, stubbornly convinced it was me, only because of a similar figure and gentle temperament. Honestly, they were a perfect match, both completely flawed. In the end, I gracefully got into a carriage and returned home, while those two went mad. Rumor had it the crown prince appeared deranged, wandering the mansion at night, wailing. Wan Rongrong lost her child and sank into severe depression, crying every day. The emperor had no choice but to depose the crown prince and appoint a new heir. People said the Eastern Palace was cursed, haunted by vengeful ghosts. In recent years, the emperor launched a grand imperial examination campaign, promoting virtuous ministers and generals. Within just 1 year, Ji Yanli rose to become Minister of Justice, a powerful first-rank official. He bought a large mansion near the Yun residence and formally proposed to me. The traditional 3 letters and 6 rights, a grand and proper marriage, enviable to all. The night before the wedding, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Only at the hour of the ox did I finally drift off. In the southern Jiangnan region in May, the stone slabs were cool and osmanthus scented the air. My parents brought 10-year-old Ji Yanli into the Yun residence. He stood there alone, uneasy at the gate. I craved honey jujube cake from the southern capital and lured him out of the mansion. On Heian Street, he admired the calligraphy and paintings in Hongda Tower. I told him to wait here and that I'd be back soon. Ji Yanli was nervous, but obediently agreed. He stood there until dusk, never seeing the delicate girl he waited for. His eyes grew increasingly disappointed, yet he persisted. Just as the sunset faded, I finally came back, out of breath. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and handed him a piece of jujube cake. The young Ji Yanli lowered his head, his heartbeat pounding loudly. The temple incense rose in the sunset, the evening bell ringing melodiously, echoing among the mountains. A man in dark robes bowed deeply, then rose to make a wish, then bowed again, repeating the ritual. A young monk pulled him gently. Devotee, sincere hearts are always effective. Ji Yanli said nothing and quietly lit several Buddhist lamps, then wrote down a birth date and time. The monk overheard his low prayers and suddenly changed expression. Devotee, are you lighting lamps for someone who has passed? If so, you should light the lamps of rebirth instead. Seeing Ji Yanli ignoring him, the monk became anxious. Lighting Buddhist lamps for the deceased is symbolic of exchanging fate. Kivo to you. After several devout bows, Ji Yanli finally looked up and spoke. That is indeed my intention. Little master, you need not worry for me. I, Ji Yanli, vow to give my life for Yun Suiwarn's return, with no regrets for all eternity. Struggling awake, I found my face already wet with tears. Maid Xiao Lu came in, startled. Miss, on such a fine day. Wipe your tears quickly. I'm here to help you dress. I smiled and nodded. Once everything was ready, my eldest brother carried me onto the bridal sedan chair. Ji Yanli held my hand, warmth spreading through me. I couldn't help but quietly lift a corner of the veil to glance at him. Coincidentally, he was looking at me too, stars twinkling in his eyes. The story has come to an end, but the journey of love never stops. They will continue to weave their beautiful legend. The end.